All right, welcome to All Day on this Monday afternoon. A lot going on today. Very busy Monday as we end the legislative session. We're going to be looking at what was accomplished, what was not with the adjournment at midnight, ceremonial day today. We are waiting for a news conference from Minneapolis police and members of the city council as they announce a non-fatal shooting investigative unit. This is similar to what the St. Paul police has been doing for some time, which they say has significantly impacted closing out non-fatal shooting investigations, which they say helps put people in jail or facing charges, helps get weapons off the street. This is something that the Ramsey County Attorney and Sheriff and others were at the Capitol pushing the legislature to have grant money for other departments to do the same. But Minneapolis police announcing here a news conference that's supposed to get started now, so we're keeping an eye on that, announcing the same unit in Minneapolis to investigate, again, non-fatal shootings. Oftentimes the investigations of obviously homicides, they were all done together and those would take priority, and the non-fatal shooting investigations would then get kind of pushed down a little bit. So by separating them out, they say they can have better outcomes. But of course, the big news today is we continue to keep an eye on a couple of wildfires going on in the state of Minnesota over the weekend. Containment is growing on both of those, which is the good news, but it is growing fairly slowly. Of course, let's start along the North Shore. This is the wildfire that is near two harbors. It is referred to as the Stewart fire. So this is one that began on Friday. Let's see, this is we'll get back to that in a minute. We got to get over to that news conference in Minneapolis that I just spoke about a non-fatal shooting investigative unit.
In terms of investigation. And so what we are doing in Minneapolis is we are treating non-fatal shootings the same way that we do shootings. We're providing an investigator. We're making sure that the person who pulled the trigger is ultimately held accountable. And last year in 2025, we were able to clear 80% of the homicide shootings. Now, compare that to 47% of the non-fatal shootings. Now, those are records in the city of Minneapolis, but at the same time, we have a lot more work to do. And by providing an investigator that has expertise to the situation, that is able to devote resources and time to investigating the non-fatal shooting, what we'll be able to do is clear more of these cases, prevent more retaliations, and ultimately prevent people from dying in our city. So that's the goal. St. Paul has done the great work of having this non-fatal shoot task force set up. And, you know, there's a saying in the field of being a mayor, which is good mayors copy and great mayors steal. We're taking this idea, we're making sure that we're instituting it here in Minneapolis because we recognize that this could ultimately save lives. I'm really grateful for a ton of partners that have stepped up. I've got council members behind me who are about to speak in just a second, but also this would not have been possible without Chief O'Hara, without Commissioner Barnett, without the MPD investigators and the officers that are carrying out this work each and every day. I also want to thank partners at Hennepin County, Ramsey County Sheriff's offices, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and Metro Transit. It's no secret that the Minneapolis Police Department is understaffed. And building a unit like this, it takes both time and people. And we have spent these first several months in 2026 making sure that we're doing this the right way, that we have and are able to devote the increased personnel that we now have in our police department to stopping these non-fatal shootings, or for that matter, all shootings. So again, what we're doing today is we are treating non-fatal shootings not as a secondary crime or offense. We're making sure that people who conduct those non-fatal shootings are held accountable. We're making sure that the proper resources are devoted to non-fatal shootings so that we're able to make a difference in people's lives and ultimately keep people in our city safe. Thankful and grateful to the council members that are here with us and did work and partnership with our office and our administration in setting this up. And I have the honor of introducing Council Member Robin Wansley.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am council member Robin Wansley. I also am the minority leader, and I represent Ward 2 proudly. And I am also here speaking as someone who has been impacted by gun violence personally and community violence. And nobody deserves the trauma that comes with a shooting. Particularly be it your neighbor or towards a loved one. No one deserves to have to experience the trauma that comes along when one of the people that you most care about have to experience gun violence. And with that experience in mind, here in Minneapolis, Black, brown, and indigenous residents are disproportionately victimized by gun violence. And our city has largely failed those victims and their families with justice, specifically when we're talking about clearance rates, which for non-fatal shootings, they have been poor for many years. And this was even the case when MPD was at some of its highest levels of staffing of around 900 officers in 2016. So when the data came along in St. Paul showing that they were having great outcomes in reducing gun violence for their communities of color by using this non-fatal task force model, I knew that Minneapolis needed to step up and do the same. St. Paul was able to triple their clearance rates within months. And a few weeks ago, we're just celebrating 100% clearance rates for their non-fatal task force or non-fatal shooting specifically. And they have also seen historic lows in homicides and overall rates of gun violence in their city as a whole. So we're seeing such significant progress happening right across the river from implementing this same model. And with that in mind, it really didn't make any sense for us to be right across from the river and having poor outcomes for our residents and not buying into the same model. And with that in mind, last December, I was proud to lead the council in funding nearly $2 million to form a non-fatal task force in our 2026 budget. And recently, I had the opportunity to tour MPD's new non-fatal task force office, and during the tour, a 911 call came in and there had been a shooting. And it was so impressive to see that the team of investigators that were a part of this new task force jumped up and ran out the door to respond to that shooting immediately. And it actually happened near the location of where we're standing right now. And I got to see in real time that this task force has completely transformed the level of service that our residents are receiving from the city in one of the most scariest situations that they can ever experience. And the city council led on this initiative because we invest in programs that data shows works. Working class residents are counting on us to spend their dollars efficiently, and MPD's budget is over $220 million. And this initiative, once again, costs $2 million, and we're seeing just tremendous progress on behalf of making our community safer and our residents safer. And we're seeing just within weeks, if not months, of implementation of this non-fatal task force, the doubling of case closures for non-fatal shootings, and have helped homicide rates get to about 80% in their respective clearance rates as well. So again, data shows that just even from across the river, if we as city leaders stick with this effort and see it through, our non-fatal shooting rates could also be hitting over 75% within the next year. And this is just a great demonstration of how the city council uses public sources or resources efficiently to serve our residents. And I just want to say thank you to Chief O'Hara and Mayor Fry for following the council's lead on this initiative. Going forward, I really do look forward to our partnership on other data-backed initiatives that help keep our residents safe and expend resources efficiently, like implementing off-duty reform, continuing our investments in non-armed safety services like the safety ambassadors, which council has funded to reach every corner of the city. And we know this is such a tremendous program, and we could be building more programs like this to help keep our residents safe. I'm also hopeful that while we're celebrating this initiative, I do want to note that its success is only made possible because of law enforcement partners stepping in to fill the gaps. And once again, I do want to thank Chief O'Hara for getting buy-in from the partners that you see behind us and alongside us today, because without their support, we would not be seeing this tremendous task force deliver some really great outcomes for our residents in reducing gun violence in our city. But I do think it's important to note that the success of this task force is truly dependent amongst the generosity of these law enforcement partners. And that leads us to one barrier that we are going to have to tackle if we're truly wanting to see this be a permanent fixture to help keep our community safe. And that barrier is the police contract. Right now, the police contract makes it very challenging for us to hire the investigative police that we need within our ranks to truly tackle gun violence meaningfully and keep our community safe. So I look forward to working with our partners and the mayors to really make sure that we're addressing that barrier in the upcoming police contract so that this great work that we're doing isn't undermined by that particular tool. So with that, again, I just want to say thank you to our partners. Thank you to our fellow city leaders. Thank you to my colleagues, Council Vice President Osmond and Councilmember Chavez, who worked hand in hand with me all last term as chairs of the Public Health and Safety Committee. We spent over a year really diving into this program and figuring out how we could bring this across the river to help our residents be safe. So with that, I believe I'm passing it to Council Vice President Osmond.
Thank you, Councilmember Wansley. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jamal Osman. I'm the Council Vice President and also Ward 6 Council member. People in Ward 6, gun is impacted every day. Some neighbors have trauma for many years. Families, especially young people that I see, that I talk to, have experienced. Even when shooting is non-fatal, the whole community is hurt. And people feel unsafe. Businesses around us struggle. Kids start to think of violence as a normal way of life. Residents tell me they are frustrated. I talk to moms that come to my office and talk about their sons being shot and the experience they're experiencing and the difficulties that they're not getting justices throughout the system. And I think one of the things that really will help those families, that we have some answers. We have folks that can do the work, that can investigate and solve some of the issue. So one of the things also is it will help is escalate and kind of get those backlogs in perfect timing. Families in every part of the city of Minneapolis deserve to feel safe in their homes, their schools, their parks, and their businesses. This effort is a part of our large commitment to reduce gun violence, support victims, and build safer across the city. We have a beautiful summer coming up, and we need to give our community hope that the elected officials they elect are ready for business. And I'm, super glad and trust the chief's leadership on this to help us and really bring justices for victims of gun violence in our city. We live in a country where just guns are everywhere, and that is something that as a leaders we need to do something about it, especially non-fatal shooting, that when those kind of incidents happen, families are left trauma, but also life goes on. We want to make sure that those folks are focusing on what's necessary. And also I want to thank Councilmember Wansley, her leadership on really being creative about when it comes to budget and allocation and where the right resource is supposed to go. The community we're standing will appreciate a lot what this resource is. And also Councilmember Jason Chavez, who's really committed in East Phillips area and the entire Ward 9. I really appreciate his partnership, and I would like to introduce him right now to come and speak.
Hi everyone, Jason Chavez, Ward 9 City Council member. And before I begin, I think it's important to acknowledge the area we are at. We are in the Phillips area in South Minneapolis, an area that for too long has been disproportionately impacted by gun violence. Particularly, these areas in South Minneapolis have a high concentration of Black, Brown, Native, and immigrant neighbors who unfortunately face the brunt of gun violence on a daily basis. And I needed to at least mention that today because this task force is meant to address victims of gun violence, which is something that we should not be having in the city of Minneapolis. We should have a city where people are free to play outside, a city where our kids should never have to fear of getting shot at, and a city where people can feel safe to go home at night. We know that in the United States, nearly 75% of homicide victims are Black and Brown people, despite the fact that Black and Brown people make up less than 1/3 of the United States population. In Minneapolis, as recently as 2022, 87% of shooting victims were black or indigenous in comparison to 10% of shooting victims that were white. And in 2021, there was one black shooting victim for every 150 black residents in Minneapolis. Meanwhile, there was only one white shooting for every 3,800 white residents in Minneapolis. I could stand here for hours talking about the statistics that we have about how gun violence disproportionately impacts BIPOC neighbors and communities. But when I think about this non-fatal task force shooting, non-fatal shooting task force, I think about the people who will mostly be impacted, and that's why it's important that we were here today in the Phillips area of South Minneapolis. Across the city, and particularly in this part of South Minneapolis, our unhoused neighbors have also been targeted by gun violence. And like all the disproportionate impacts I just discussed, a disproportionate impact of folks that are unhoused are also BIPOC. And meanwhile, while this task force isn't meant to help end homelessness, it should have an outsized benefit to folks that are experiencing homelessness who have been victims of shooting.
Appears to be a little technical difficulty. A frozen feed here from the Minneapolis news conference. Looks like we got it again. This is Councilmember Jason Chavez. Let's keep listening.
Impact that our communities of color and our immigrant neighbors face when it comes to gun violence. I really want to thank the partnership of the chief, the mayor, and particularly the work that Councilmember Wansley has done to bring this conversation to the public health. That was then the Public Health and Safety Committee. That is now the Public Health, Safety, and Equity Committee. And the work that is done. And I think it's a day that we get to say, this is one thing that we get to do to address gun violence. And you're seeing a lot of folks that aren't always together at a press conference, but saying, we're going to take this very seriously. And it's a reminder that we should be doing more, like always. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Brian O'Hara. I'm the Minneapolis Police Chief. So today we're talking about creating a firearm assault shooting team, the FAST team as we call it, and also creating a new unit in the police department that we call VCAT to work in tandem with it. VCAT is the Violent Criminal Apprehension Team. As everyone is well aware, over the last few years, we've had significant staffing challenges in the police department. The department in 2024 dipped down to about 550 officers, the lowest in many decades. At the same time, the city was struggling with very high caseloads of serious crime. The year before I became the police chief, over 600 people were shot in this city in 1 year. The last couple of years, we have had to use our homicide investigators to investigate not just all of our homicides, but also to investigate non-fatal shootings. And while one of the many reasons why this team is so important is because we know very well about the nature of community violence. The overwhelming majority of these cases involving community violence, whether they're non-fatal shootings or fatal shootings, the majority share very, very similar characteristics. However, the results in the majority of those cases are starkly different. As the mayor and council members have referenced, typically homicides have had a higher clearance rate. A clearance rate means the person responsible is arrested and brought to justice. That's not the same for cases involving non-fatal shootings. And that's just not the case in Minneapolis. That's the case traditionally around the country. And what the creation of this task force, as well as the VCAT team, seeks to do, it's to change that. It's to have a trained, dedicated investigator respond immediately to the scene of a non-fatal shooting, just like we would for a homicide. The reason why homicides clear at a much higher percentage around the country is not a difference in the circumstances. It's a difference in the amount of resources that can be dedicated to these cases and how intensely and quickly you can provide that. So I'm thankful so much today because this is something we've wanted to do for a while. We're able, over the last year and a half, we're able to have the Department of Justice assisted under the previous U.S. attorney through the National Public Safety Partnership to provide us with an assessment and recommendations on clearing non-fatal shootings. We've been able to implement those as well as implementing this team. And as many people have referenced, we're already seeing results. Because our homicide unit is no longer investigating homicides as well as non-fatal shootings, they're focusing more time on homicides. There were 4 murders last week that were submitted for charges just last week alone. Last year's clearance rate for homicide is already at 80%, the highest it's been in many years in this city. The clearance rates for non-fatal shootings last year is already up to 47%. And what had been typical in Minneapolis over the last several years would be a clearance rate in the high 20% or close to 30%. So we're already seeing significant progress around that. Because staffing remains a challenge, I can't tell you how thankful we are to the partner agencies that are in this with us full time. The Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension has dedicated special agents to this. Our Hennepin County Sheriff, Sheriff Witt, has dedicated her intelligence analyst to assist. Ramsey County Sheriff has dedicated law enforcement to respond to shootings here alongside of us. And the Bloomington Police are soon going to be assigning some detectives and some investigators for the summer to assist us with responding to shootings. In addition to that, our Violent Criminal Apprehension Team, they're the entity that's dedicated. As soon as there's probable cause to make an arrest, as soon as we know who a shooter is, they're the investigators that go out full time to get these people off the street. They're assisted by these outside agencies, as well as soon to be assisted by the Minnesota Department of Corrections as well. So I'm really excited about the tremendous results that we are seeing. Over the last couple of years, the Minneapolis police have taken about 1,000 illegal guns off the street every year. Think about that, about 1,000 every year. But what we really
All right, again, technical issues. Apologize for that. That's Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara.
actually are. They are failed homicides.
Fatal shooting investigating
so they need to be
unit.
treated with the same level of intensity and urgency as we treat homicides in the city. With that, I'm going to pass it off to Mr. Hassanin from our community, who's going to share his perspective on how this impacts the community.
My name is Hassanin Mohammed. I am the Executive Director of Minnesota Somali Community Center. I'm here speaking on behalf of the communities that have suffered from gun violence in and around Minneapolis and surrounding areas. This is a positive direction of what we needed. We have been talking among ourselves in the communities, various communities, on what our summer plan will be from what we have seen that has been happening earlier. I can tell you that from the community's perspective, we like to see something that is data-driven, fact-driven initiative. And I want to say this, that in most of the violence that has happened, we have come to find out that the perpetrators are people who have done it before and never got caught. So what we are talking about right now is dealing with an issue not on the upstream, but middle stream, before they even kill somebody when they are downstream. And I remember times, some of them are here, when we were talking about how the murder rate was not being solved in Minneapolis. And now I'm happy to hear that the numbers are showing some progress, which brings, accountability to the communities, to folks who feel like their loved ones were taken away from them. So I want to say this, that I hope this is just the beginning of the summer, resource being, what the council members and the mayor and the police chief have said here, data-driven, fact-driven. We hopefully want to save lives, and I hope that this initiative will be something positive for our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll open it to questions.
What that looks like.
Yeah. I'll turn it over to the chief in a second, but when we've had a homicide, there are specific investigators that are assigned that have expertise that are able to conduct a full-blown interview and investigation of what exactly took place. Obviously with significant attrition and with the numbers that we have, that gets harder and harder to do when you've got the numbers of both shootings, non-fatal and homicides that are increasing and the numbers of officers that we have that are decreasing. And so, this is something that we've been looking to do for quite some time. Obviously, it makes it easier to do with the increased numbers, and the partnership that we've been able to form, I think, allows us to make it happen. The chief can expand on how exactly it works.
Thank you. So I think the question was, explain how this is different from what was happening before.
Yeah.
So what had been happening before was the homicide unit, which is still staffed the same way it is today, was being assigned not just homicides, but also the non-fatal shootings. However, they would only respond out to the scene of when a homicide happened. So what that meant prior to this task force was we rotate around the duty investigators, during non-business hours. So at night and on the weekends, all of our investigators take turns doing that rotation. So that meant that, tonight it might be property crimes investigators that has the duty. On Saturday, it might be a traffic investigator, and so on, an assault person, somebody from robbery. So what is different now is just like when there is a homicide, an investigator assigned to the FAST team, whether that's Minneapolis officer or any of the other participating agencies with us, they will respond immediately to the scene and start working the case immediately, just like we would do in a homicide, instead of having a detective who typically investigates some other crime go out and start it and then wait for the investigator to be assigned Monday morning or the next business day.
All right, we've been listening into a news conference from Minneapolis. That's Chief Brian O'Hara announcing a non-fatal shooting investigative unit, explaining there the difference, whereas the homicide unit would cover every shooting, but obviously give priority to the homicides, and the other ones might not get the attention they need, and those cases wouldn't get cleared. Now a separate unit will handle the non-fatal shooting investigations. You saw Ramsey County Sheriff Bob Fletcher probably in the background there, and you wonder what's he got to do with this? Well, because this is modeled on something that has worked in St. Paul and in Ramsey County, and the sheriff was recently at the legislature to try to encourage the legislators to have a grant program for other departments around the state to be able to embark on this same system, because they say it has worked great in both St. Paul with the police department, Ramsey County with that sheriff's department. So again, being replicated certainly in large ways in Minneapolis right now. All right, we got to get to some other news of the day in a minute, and that is the wildfires raging first along the North Shore and also in the Brainerd Lakes area, just north of there, the Breezy Point area. We hope to have a conversation here with the sheriff of Crow Wing County with an update on those efforts when we come back. All right, welcome back to All Day on this Monday. Rob Olson in today. Big news over the weekend that continues today, and that is up north in a couple of different parts of the state, a couple of big wildfires that we're keeping a close eye on here that have grown and then been slightly contained here over the weekend. This is the first one along the North Shore, Highway 61, the Two Harbors area. It is known as the Stewart Trail Fire. So again, northeast of Two Harbors, between there and Castle Danger. The red is the evacuate now portion, and the orange then area is the get ready set to evacuate. Yellow is to be ready. Now, just looking at the Incident Command, Minnesota Incident Command is the clearinghouse for all the information here. And one new important update that they posted here this morning is the cause of this fire. It had been previously listed as undetermined. Now it is listed as power line, so a downed power line. Here's some of the video from that as well. Pretty remarkable there. 335 acres in size. It is now listed at 62% contained, according to the Minnesota Incident Command System. But again, a dangerous situation up there. This is smaller than the other one, but it has led to more damage of property there. You can see 8 homes and businesses among the 34 buildings damaged so far. Governor Tim Walz has been traveling up there today to assess the situation. Hopefully we can get an update here. He declared an emergency over the weekend, but pulling water out of nearby Lake Superior, which is certainly a convenient source of a lot of water very close to where this fire is burning. So again, 62% containment there, which is a mix of fire lines that are established, whether it's ditches that have been dug or kind of areas that have been cleared and watered down to try to prevent the spread of this. A pretty lengthy detour still in place in that area between Two Harbors and Castle Danger. All right, let's get over to the other one burning in the Breezy Point area. This is known as the Flanders fire. It broke out on Saturday. Certainly some dramatic images from there. It is much bigger. Let me scroll back over to make sure we have the most updated information of this from Minnesota Incident Command. So it is listed at 1,666 acres, 20% contained at this point. Again, this is more than 4 times the size of the fire at Two Harbors and much less containment. We have not heard about as many losses of property here, but it is a much bigger area east of Breezy Point. So if you go to Breezy Point, straight east of there across the lake is the area where this is burning, southeast of Cross Lake, and we'll be speaking to the mayor of Cross Lake a little bit later in the show. But a lot of efforts up there as well, certainly a lot of water to dip into to help fight this situation. Again, looking at the latest update, we hope to speak to the sheriff of Crow Wing County here at some point. He was planning to join us. We are still waiting for him. Obviously a very, very busy man up there today. But according to this, started Saturday, still undetermined as of this point. 139 crew members working on this. And the update here, and this went into effect about a half an hour ago. They said right around noon, County Road 11 had been closed up there. It was planning to be reopened at noon today for pass-through traffic and for property owners within the evacuation area to get back into their properties just for the day, not to stay there, but just for the day. They did mention that they got, obviously we got some rain overnight, but according to the Crow Wing County Sheriff this morning, it was not significant enough to have much impact on the fire conditions. He didn't say zero impact, but he said the impact was fairly small. So a significant effort still going on there with 20% containment. They're using bulldozers, other tracked vehicles to, again, create that fire break around the perimeter there to stop this from spreading. So hopefully we'll get him on the line here at some point. We got to talk about some other regional stories right now, and this also has to do with the outdoors here and weather. We begin in Iowa, Joyce, Iowa, which is northwest of Mason City. The Worth County Sheriff there did confirm a tornado hitting. It did strike a home. There was a couple in that home. This was about 10 o'clock last night, but the update now is 1 person hospitalized and expected to be okay. So a confirmed tornado northwest of Mason City. Again, 1 person hospitalized but expected to be okay. More weather in Kingsley, Iowa. Now this is northwest Iowa near Sioux City, and this information from KTIV TV, Plymouth County. The emergency management director and department there says significant damage from storms there. A lot of power lines that were down last night. And so residents last night, reading the update, they were told to stay at home or stay indoors. Don't drive around because of all the down power lines. Now power out, but you never know which lines are still carrying current. So they block traffic in and out of the town. The update this morning is that power has been restored and paths have been cleared as they continue to clean up from that damage there. But again, some rainfall last night, some pretty severe weather that rolled through, especially down in southern Minnesota through the Mankato area, certainly then rolling through the Twin Cities. Some much needed moisture, more potentially on the way as we look at the forecast. Here's meteorologist Keith Marler.
A little extra cloud cover lingering, kind of going to and fro across the area. this morning. Ooh, to and fro. It sounds festive, doesn't it? But coming off of a stormy evening and last night where we picked up, well, over an inch of rain in the Twin Cities. Much needed. Sure, we are behind schedule for the month of May already. We're only barely halfway through the month, but not necessarily where we needed that rain, which was, of course, in our wildfire zones. Parts around Breezy Point picked up only a few hundredths of an inch. Same thing up across parts of the North Shore as well. We have another opportunity for rain, though, rolling back on in here toward the back part of the day today. Most of the day spent drying out. Cloud cover, again, mostly around. There'll be partly sunny breaks here and there. Highs in the 60s for most 70s have already been aimed for and already achieved for parts of southeastern Minnesota as a whole. And that's where we'll see a redevelopment of some stronger storms and a low wind risk for severe weather across southeastern Minnesota toward the evening and parts of the overnight hours overall. But the biggest threat for severe weather is really down into Missouri and Kansas with a level 4 and level 3 risk for severe weather. We're talking about barely a level 2 risk for southeastern Minnesota. As the afternoon turns into the evening, we'll blossom out some showers and thunder showers of a more generic nature. And it gets a little more aggressive in southeastern Minnesota, but we all have a chance in general across the state for a quarter inch or so of rain, maybe a quarter to a half inch, especially across parts of our eastern viewing area with some stronger storms in southeastern parts of the state. And that generically changes to just a few lingering drips for early tomorrow morning. Then that pushes away with some extra cloud cover that tries to break up through the day. But with stronger northwestern flow, we stay cool tomorrow. Coolest day of the week with highs struggling through the 50s, well below average for May into your day on Tuesday. Then back to sunshine in 60s into your day on Wednesday. Again, we do have that severe weather threat mainly for our southeastern viewing area. The Twin Cities has been removed from the official level 1 risk for severe weather, but that quickly blossoms into the level 2 risk for severe weather across southeastern parts of the state. Rochester, Albert Lee, Austin, La Crosse, Winona, Wabasha, all part, and Eau Claire, all part of that level 2 risk. Hail and wind would be the key threats for between 7 and midnight tonight overall. So patchy sunshine, might erupt, but cloud cover a big chunk of the afternoon. Late day and evening scattered storms possible, highs in the mid to upper 60s. And that turns into 50s as we go on into the day on Tuesday, our Twins Tuesday. Couple of drip drops in the morning, then mostly cloudy sky. 60s are back on Wednesday with plenty of sunshine. Mid to upper 60s, close to average, but average high for this time of year would be around 70. So closer to that. Beautiful days, though, Wednesday and Thursday. Back to the 70s as we head on into Saturday afternoon. And Sunday, back to the 80s we go. By the way, a holiday weekend this weekend, 1 week from today, Memorial Day.
All right, welcome back to All Day Live. The other big news going on this weekend is the 2026 Minnesota legislative session. The deadline was midnight last night, so that's when they gavelled out. It's called Sine Die. So they are done today. They are just doing sort of the end of session ceremonial portions of things, retirement speeches on the floors of the House and Senate. But scramble is always to pass bills before that midnight deadline last night. And anything that didn't pass has got to wait until 2027 unless there's a special session, which there's been no talk of that at this point. So late Sunday evening, the health bill passed the Senate. That includes that bailout money for Hennepin County Medical Center, $205 million to help the large safety net hospital, along with emergency funds for other nonprofit hospitals in the state. So there's like a $500 million emergency fund that other hospitals can request help from. It has been a big topic across the state, trying to keep hospitals healthy, at least from a financial bottom line standpoint. It also included some safety protections for lawmakers, new fraud measures like the Office of Inspector General. There's memorials for Melissa Hortman, some of the other bills among those that passed this session. Some that didn't pass, though, and this was big news, of course, with the sit-in on the House floor, that's new gun restrictions, and along with that, school safety funding as well. It's a bill the Democrats had named a top priority after the mass shooting at Annunciation Catholic Church and School. So let's hear from Senator Aaron Murphy speaking today about what got done at this year's session.
I've pushed all session long for a fair deal for Minnesotans, and in many ways we accomplished that. The Minnesota Senate being the grown-up in the room, so often moving and pushing an agenda that in large part became the centerpiece of what we accomplished this session. $1.2 billion in job-creating bonding projects across the state, an investment in work, an investment in communities, and an investment in our future. important rental and housing investments and property tax reductions coming later this fall for people. We stabilized HCMC and invested in distressed hospitals with $30 million in uncompensated care and a rate increase for our critical access hospitals, knowing they are all struggling under the weight of the federal budget that was passed last July. We're attacking high fuel costs. We all know we're paying much more at the pump. We're doing so with the tab fee holiday. We are frustrated because we know that could have started in October. Our Republican colleagues in the bonding deal insisted they'd start in January. That relief could come sooner than that, but that was a provision that they insisted on, and without it, they would take down the bonding bill. That's a frustration for me, and I think it's important for Minnesotans to know. We did strong investments in public safety, in capital security, in crime victim services. We took a very important approach and invested in IT and modernization. It is a way for us to deliver government more efficiently, protect what we deliver from fraud, and to make sure that we're no longer operating on green screens in the Oregon Trail for important critical services that we deliver. We took a very muscular policy approach to fraud this session. We stepped away from the politics of fraud and got busy resolving the issues that we're facing in human services. For the second year in a row, Senator Hoffman, Senator Mohammed, Senator McQuaid, and others worked very hard to put in place policy protections to prevent fraud and accountability measures to hold accountable bad actors.
All right, that is remarks from this morning by Senate Majority Leader Aaron Murphy, is again reflecting on what happened this session. So let's go back to the Capitol now and check in with our Corin Hoggard, who's no doubt a little bit exhausted from the long weekend. Corin, how you doing?
Summed it up right there. I got a disco nap after leaving here at about 1:30 and had to come back pretty early. So yeah, I'm dragging a little bit.
I bet you are. Well, let's, she kind of summed up what was accomplished here. How would you sum up as the major achievements from this session before that midnight deadline?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the priorities that they had got through. Everything that had any kind of bipartisan support got through. So, I mean, the big deals obviously are HCMC getting rescued, and that also includes some stabilization funds for other hospitals across the state as we start seeing the impact of last year's federal budget bill start to trickle down here. And, a lot of hospitals, HCMC here may be a canary in a coal mine, but a lot of hospitals are struggling financially with uncompensated care that's getting worse now that there are Medicaid changes. So that's a big deal. A lot of the fraud issues were addressed, especially with the Office of the Inspector General being established this year, the House passing it and then the Senate concurring with the changes that they made there so that there is an independent unit that kind of canvasses the whole state and all the departments to try to make sure that fraud is not happening. And when it does, the bad actors get caught and stopped and aren't allowed to operate fraudulently in one space, get caught there, but then still be operating fraudulently in another space without any kind of consequences for a while at least. So those are a couple of the big things that went through. I think tomorrow I'm going to try to focus on what did not go through, but a few of the DFL priorities coming in were the Operation Metro surge impacts and trying to absorb those. They did get a little bit in the way of rental relief that's not directly connected to Metro surge, but in their eyes it is. And also the gun safety stuff. So that passed in the Senate, but went nowhere in the House. So those two big DFL priorities didn't go anywhere. But, again, saving HCMC, I think, was probably the top priority. And then fraud was also kind of 1A, or maybe was the top priority, and HCMC was 1A. So they got both of those done. They passed a bonding bill, which is really tough to do. and they got a whole lot of affordability issues through. So hopefully the pocketbooks of Minnesotans will be a little bit heavier because we won't be paying so much in tab fees and property taxes and things like that.
Yeah, and we got about 1 minute left with you, Corin, and then we'll let you get going here. In terms of the gun safety measures that sit in on the House floor, and you said, this is something that would go nowhere, and it didn't. But do you have any sense that it may have made an impact long term?
We'll know in November, really. They're definitely taking that on the campaign trail. That was one of the messages we got at 1 a.m. yesterday as we talked to the DFL House leadership, Zach Stevenson and Jamie Long. They're definitely taking that out on the campaign trail. And so we'll see. A lot of the measures that they were proposing, including a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, typically poll well across the state, not necessarily as strongly in all of greater Minnesota as it is in the metro, but it's still more than a 50% issue. And, we'll see if, people in greater Minnesota will trust DFL lawmakers to pass gun control that they agree with and not gun control that they disagree with.
Yep. Certainly, again, a big campaign issue in this midterm election year. Corin, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You got it.
All right, got to take a quick break right now. On the other side, though, the Crow Wing County Sheriff is set to join us to give us an update from the scene there, from the ground of the Flanders fire, east of Breezy Point, southeast of Cross Lake. That's when we come back. All right, welcome back to All Day Live on this Monday. We turn our attention back to the north, and that is one of two wildfires in Minnesota. This one, the larger one of the two, the Flanders fire. So getting an update now from the ground, a man who's very busy, so we appreciate his time with us, Crow Wing County Sheriff Eric Klang. Where are you right now on the ground?
Actually, right in Mission Township, kind of real close to Flanders Lake. If you can see that anywhere. I'm not sure what kind of mapping you got there.
Yeah. I mean, we can see the charred remains here. I mean, the charred on the ground, but still green on the top of the pines behind you.
Yeah, so this is just a different area. This is where we're pretty close to where the fire started. So it came through here really fast. I mean, it was the winds just really pushed that fire through, so it didn't get a chance to burn this. But as we get deeper into the forest, away from the water, it certainly it slowed down a little bit and burned the tops of the trees right to the top.
All right, so we're listed at over 1,600 acres, and at last check, 20% containment. And I think people kind of wonder, what does contained mean? So explain how much of that is about establishing the fire break perimeter. Kind of explain that.
Yeah, so the fire department has different terminology than the law enforcement has, and I'm going to say, I've been out here quite a bit all day today, and they say it's 21% containment, but as I've been around here, there was no visible flames. There was what I call little smokestacks that are in the woods where tree stumps are probably are smoldering, and we have guys that are on the ground that are going through there and picking those apart, dousing water on them, but there's really nothing to see other than this charred remains that you see behind me.
Well, that's certainly a better image than what we saw over the weekend with a lot of flames and smoke there. So what is
it was one of the biggest fires I've ever been part of in my 30 years in law enforcement. I've never seen size and how fast and furious these winds and fire was.
Yeah, and I see that you'd announced that County Road 11, which had been closed around this opening at noon today, so not quite an hour ago, for people to pass through and for property owners to get back in to assess. What is exactly happening with that opening County Road 11?
Yeah, so we, for the most part, we've had some secondary buildings that were destroyed, but we had no primary residences that were destroyed. There were some damaged. We had melting siding that they were going to come back and find or see. We had there was plastic fencing that was melted down to the ground, and some other livestock fencing as well that was destroyed. but for the most part, I mean, this could have been a lot worse, but luckily we made it through relatively unscathed, I would say.
Well, that's good. In terms of what's your kind of focus and prediction from this point on, as you say, you don't see those open flames as much. How do you see this progressing over the next couple of days?
Yeah, so we'll have fire crews on the ground. They've been here 24/7 through the night as well, and they're going to be currently they're just walking through the burned area to look for those hot spots or look for those smokestacks and put those out. This is really GPS coordinated, so they know exactly where they were, and so they'll be able to cover this relatively quickly, and hopefully we can wrap things up maybe in the next couple of days.
Well, that's good news to hear. One last thing here. There was rainfall overnight. You had said it was not significant enough to have much impact. Did it help at all?
You know, I've been on these back roads and snowmobile trails. It's basically, it knocked down the dust. So it's not quite as dusty out here. The rain was really kind of insignificant. I thought we were going to get some more rain maybe today. But that didn't happen either. So if you got any connections with that weather, Matt, tell them to send some rain our way.
I'll chat with them about that. Sheriff Eric Klang in Crow Wing County, thanks for taking the time. I know you're busy today. We'll let you get back to work. All right, there we go. Live report from the sheriff up there, which is good news that he said this was one of the most significant fire he's seen in his career in terms of the flames, but now not really seeing any of those flames anymore. More smoldering areas as they continue to up their containment assessment. We got to take a break. Coming up, a lot more to come as we continue to cover this, the end of the Capitol, the end of the Minnesota Wild season. We're expecting to hear from the general manager and head coach in the next hour here as well, and more live events that we're trying to keep tabs of too. We'll let you know what there is to tell you when we come back.
Filed charges against.
All right, we join breaking news in progress. This is Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty and Attorney General Keith Ellison announcing charges, 5 of them against an ICE agent involved in a shooting back in January. Let's listen in.
With 4 counts of assault in the second degree and 1 count of falsely reporting a crime. The 4 counts of assault are a result of Mr. Castro shooting through the front door of a residence with the intent to cause fear of immediate bodily harm or death to the 4 adults who were just inside the door. These charges have activated a nationwide warrant for his arrest. Here is a copy of the complaint. Mr. Castro fired his service weapon at the front door of the home, knowing there were people who had just run inside that presented absolutely no threat to him or anyone else. The bullet punched through the front door and struck Mr. Sosa Solis's leg before traveling through a closet and lodging in the wall of a child's bedroom. Mr. Castro was not under any physical threat when he fired his weapon or even beforehand. He was not hit by a shovel or a broom. In fact, he was not hit at all. His own boss, ICE Director Todd Lyons, acknowledged that 2 ICE agents lied in the aftermath of this incident. Mr. Castro was one of them. The hastily charged federal case against Mr. Sosa Solis and Mr. Alhornia were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they cannot be refiled. The crimes that the federal government alleged they committed never occurred. Yet, the Department of Homeland Security press release containing those lies and making accusations of attempted murder against individuals at whom Mr. Castro shot still remains on its website today. This violence and his lies had a significant impact both on our community broadly and specifically on Mr. Sosa Solis and Mr. Alhornia. A violent crime did occur that night, but it was Mr. Castro who committed it. He shot through the door of a home with many people, including children, inside, while fortunately missing several others. His bullet did struck Mr. Sosa Solis in the thigh. Mr. Castro is an ICE agent, but his federal badge does not make him immune from state charges for his criminal conduct in Minnesota. I've said it many times, and I'll say it again. There is no such thing as absolute immunity for federal officers who commit crimes in this state or any other. So what's next? We do expect his defense to attempt to remove the case to federal court. Should a judge grant that motion, it would still be prosecuted by our attorneys. Should it end in a conviction, Mr. Castro will be ineligible for a presidential pardon. While Minneapolis was being occupied by federal agents, Mr. Sosa Solis, who was lawfully here in our community, was shot by an ICE agent who fired at him after he ran into his home, putting numerous lives at risk. We will not rest in our pursuit of accountability for unlawful actions committed by federal agents in Minnesota. We, along with our partners at the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and the Minnesota Attorney General's Office, have thoroughly investigated this incident. We followed the facts, collected and preserved evidence, and have analyzed the law thoroughly. Those actions have led us to today's decision. These are appropriate charges, and we are fully prepared for what comes next. Thank you. Now I will turn it over to Attorney General Ellison, and then we'll take questions.
Well, first of all, let me thank you, County Attorney Moriarty, on excellent work. Also, let me thank the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. Worked very hard on this. Let me thank all of the staff members who have worked really hard on this and have done all they can to bring the most accurate and well-researched and well-investigated case forward that they could. All of them have done well by the people of the state of Minnesota. Now, the state of Minnesota and in every county in the state of Minnesota has a duty, obligation, and certainly a right to provide public safety. And what does that mean? It means investigating offenses, violations of law, and it means holding people accountable when those laws are violated through the prosecutorial process. This is entirely appropriate. It's the right thing to do. And American jurisprudence has recognized for a long time that there is no absolute immunity, as the county attorney said, when a federal agent violates the criminal laws of a state. And so today, this is an expression of that accountability, our effort to bring forward meaningful accountability and protection for the people of this state. I continue to hope that the federal government will work with us to make sure that the law is followed and that is vindicated. And I'll continue to hold that hope out because I believe that in the best of us. But I will say that at this moment, we're still hoping for that. And right there, I'll just say thank you. And that's all we want to say.
Ernesto.
Mayor, thanks for your time and this information. Can you walk us through how your office and your team was able to ascertain the identity of the agent? This had been a big stumbling block all along. And then, now that he has been charged, what follows in terms of getting him into custody? I've noticed that the agent your office charged back in April is still a fugitive. Do you expect that there will be some mechanism to get him arrested and arraigned?
So I'll answer the second question first, which is what mechanism might be out there to get Mr. Castro into custody, or at least here to start the proceedings. You've noticed that Mr. Morgan, the ICE agent who we charged earlier, is still not in custody. What I can say about Mr. Morgan's case is that we have made substantial progress in getting him here to start that process. Your first question was about how did we identify Mr. Castro. I would say that the BCA did a tremendous job of getting to the scene very quickly, where they heard FBI agents identifying this agent. They also did some follow-up, which allowed us to get corroboration of the agent's name.
Did you have any cooperation whatsoever from anybody at the federal level with this investigation?
We did not have cooperation of anyone at the federal government to give us any of the evidence that we have. We still don't have any evidence that they might have collected.
Do you have an update on the immigration status? I know that there was attempts to deport Mr. Sosa Solis and the cooperating the witnesses, the women, as well as the man that they were chasing on the way there. Where does all that stand?
Well, the question was about apparently the federal government tried to deport Mr. Sosa Solis and the women that were involved and Mr. El Hornio. What I want to say very clearly is that they were here lawfully. They were here lawfully, and this was a case of mistaken identity. ICE chased Mr. El Hornio when he was working for DoorDash. He was not the person that they thought he was, and I'm just going to emphasize again, they were both here lawfully.
Do you have any idea where this agent is right now, and how confident are you that he'll cooperate and you'll ultimately be able to hold him accountable?
The question is, do we have any idea where the ICE agent is right now? No. There are also mechanisms out there to find him, and I feel pretty confident that we will get him in here to start this process.
Was he one of the local, was he from the Twin Cities area, or was he somebody who was working here temporarily?
Our best information is that he was not from the local area.
Regarding the video that proved that they were lying, yes. It was kind of like a rare time that the federal authorities, Todd Lyons, admitted wrongdoing by publicly stating that they had lied. Can you speak to the importance of the video that captured what went on in that front yard?
Well, the question was about the video of the front yard. So when various people, including the people in the house, called 911, the Minneapolis police were able, there was a camera there on that corner, and they were able to turn the camera to capture what happened in the front yard. I think it was extremely important. Anytime that you have video which contradicts what an ICE agent or frankly anybody says, that's very compelling evidence.
Will Mr. Sosa Solis be able to testify at this trial? Do you know where he is? And if so, and assuming it does go to trial, would his testimony be critical for your case as the prosecution?
Question is about Mr. Sosa Solis. Would he be able to testify? How critical is his testimony? I'll only say that we have had extensive contact with him, as has the BCA, and I'll just leave it at that. Jeff, do you have a question?
With this case was that not only what happened to Mr. Sosa Solis, Mr. Elajorna, but that another man was sent to Texas, never charged and held for a number of weeks. Their partners were also sent to Texas, I believe, and held for a number of weeks. Can you just talk about, from a law enforcement perspective, some of these federal actions that maybe don't rise to the level of criminal charges but are tied into the behavior that was seen by Minnesotans over the course of Operation Metro Surge? And I don't know, just how you kind of view that element, even if it's not criminal, but as just part of the things that people here went through during that.
The question was about some of the behavior that many of us, our community, witnessed and actually experienced during Operation Metro Surge. Much of it didn't rise to the level of a criminal offense, but it was still abhorrent conduct which frightened community members. This is one of the reasons why we created the Transparency and Accountability Project, to allow community members to give us information, videos, so that we could interview them and tell their stories. I think some of what we're getting is not criminal in nature. I am also aware that there was some documentation by the Human Rights Watch, and I think we'll hear much more about their report coming up here, and I think Human Rights Watch and other groups like the ACLU and the Attorney General, and I can let the Attorney General speak to that, but filing lawsuits about violations of people's rights that might not rise to the level of criminal activity, but just documenting documenting what happened here to people so that people feel that someone noticed. I mean, one of our investigators was interviewing a person as part of our TAP project, and I happened to run into that woman who burst into tears just at the idea that someone cared about what happened to her, and they were going to document that. And so I think those efforts are critically important.
Procedural question: if this does get removed to federal court, so it'll be your prosecutors there. Will it be a Minnesota statute that they continue to prosecute, and will the federal judge be in charge of that?
Yes, so the question is, if this gets removed to federal court, essentially who will the prosecutors be? And that's a question we've heard quite often, because I've been asked, does that mean that you have to get the U.S. Attorney's Office on board to charge? It does not. So if it was removed to federal court, which is actually a pretty low bar, but if it is removed to federal court, it will be our staff, some of whom are behind me, who will be prosecuting the case. It is under state law. Procedural law would be federal law. It would be a federal court or a federal judge, and the jurors would be drawn from a larger area than Hennepin County.
Like a federal jury, basically.
Yes, but it is our team prosecuting, and I think something incredibly important here is if there is a conviction, Mr. Castro could not be pardoned by the president.
Is there a modern precedent for what you're trying to accomplish?
Is there a modern precedent for what we're trying to accomplish? I would say there's no modern precedent for what happened to the people here in Minnesota. And so it requires a lot of us to dig in and look at ways to hold people accountable that we probably never thought we would be looking at in our careers.
I was just sitting there thinking, watching you two, that year up for election, you have decided not to run for re-election. This is a slow-moving process. I wonder how you kind of view this in relation to the long road that these cases might take, and sort of, are there any assurances that the people of Minnesota can have that accountability will continue to be sought in the future, whether either or both of you are still or not?
The question is about the Attorney General is seeking re-election. I am not. Essentially what happens after this, and I should make it clear, we have an agreement with the Attorney General's office, that's the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, entered into an agreement at our request for support, in part because we thought it was important for the people of the state of Minnesota to see its officials working together and trying to get accountability. The fact that that agreement can be revoked by the county attorney's office at any time, I think speaks to the critical nature of who the next county attorney will be. Will that person continue with this work? Because I can guarantee you this work will not be done by the end of my term. So will that person continue with this work? And I'll let the Attorney General speak to the question directed at him.
I'll simply say that we are absolutely committed to the final resolution of this matter on the basis of justice. And I want to definitely commend the county attorney who's done a remarkable job on this matter. But she doesn't have to fear that we're not going to carry on. Okay. Yeah, and I'll just say that there's a long line of cases where state authorities have had to hold federal agents accountable for breaking state law. I think the first one is called N. Ray Nagel, and they flowed from there. And so, as was said earlier, there's no such thing as absolute immunity.
Can you talk about what the timeline is for this, and what are some of the next steps that need to happen to move this forward? It kind of seems like you're up against a lot of challenges when, we don't have this suspect in custody, and maybe there's not a lot of cooperation on the federal level here. So can you talk about what needs to happen in order for this to actually...
Sure. We can't begin the process of prosecution until we have Mr. Castro, not necessarily in custody, but making an appearance here in state court in all likelihood. As I said, in the case of Mr. Morgan, we have made substantial progress in getting him here. So I have great confidence that we will get Mr. Castro here in some way or another to start this process. What we expect is that he, just like any other federal agent, would make that motion to remove the case to federal court. I mentioned that it's a very low bar, so it may be removed to federal court, which simply means that our team will be prosecuting the case in federal court rather than state court. To get a little more in the weeds, for those of you who are interested in that, one of the defenses would be what's called supremacy clause immunity. It is not absolute immunity. And it is a defense. It is a defense that a federal agent can raise. It has to be decided by a judge. So if the judge decides that supremacy clause immunity is not appropriate in this case or any other case, then we continue to prosecute it.
So it's a pretrial type motion thing?
It is an evidentiary, it's supposed to be an evidentiary motion hearing that is decided by the judge. So that would require testimony to be presented. But in many, as the Attorney General said, there are cases out there, but not entirely like this. It's been interesting, and I know the Attorney General and I have talked about this a great deal. You have to look back to probably the American Revolution for a situation where an entity was encroaching on the colonists or the states. They weren't states at the time, but people rose up because of that. We went through a period in the civil rights era where the federal government had to come in to various states to help protect the rights of people in those states, and so they were somewhat heroic in that era. And now we're completely reversed. We were occupied by our federal government, not at our request. In fact, the occupation had nothing to do with crime, which is going down. It had nothing to do with anything that this administration said it had to do. What we saw here in the community inflicted upon our community members was simply unprecedented. So this is a situation where our community is still struggling. I should say that too. I was at a neighborhood association meeting last week where I heard that ICE was staging in this particular neighborhood, and I heard stories of how people who were showing up to help students get to school were followed home by ICE agents and were terrified because people they believed to be ICE agents were driving by their home. This has had a huge impact. They inflicted a huge amount of harm. And, you know, you could talk about it economically, but I don't know how you talk about children who are still afraid to go to school, people who are still afraid to go to their jobs. Even though they may be here legally, it did not matter. People were profiled during this, and that caused a great deal of harm. It's still here in our community. It will have long-lasting effects. And what we hope to do as an office here is to, in our lane, bring some accountability for unlawful behavior that was inflicted upon our community. Matt?
When might you have a charging decision for the other two shootings, Alex Preddy and Renee Good?
Question was about a charging decision on Alex Preddy and Renee Good. I think I've been clear all through this process. There are no timelines. We have been thoughtful. We have multiple meetings every week with the federal partners that we're working with in the Attorney General's office. Investigations still continue, and we would not move forward until we feel that it's appropriate to charge or not charge, and we feel confident that we're ready to go. And so I'm not going to put a timeline on it because that would just be artificial, and we don't know. If we decide to bring charges, we'll do that when we feel confident that we're ready to go. Last question.
Serious enough that he could go to prison if he's convicted?
So the question is, second-degree assault with a gun is a 36-month mandatory. And it could be consecutive because it's multiple victims.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good job, Mary.
All right, breaking news there. That is Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty, joined by Attorney General Keith Ellison to announce charges against an ICE agent related to a non-fatal shooting back in January. These are the charges here. And so we've got 5 counts of second-degree assault. So it's second-degree assault with a dangerous weapon. So there's 4 counts of those, and then the 5th count is falsely reporting a crime. Now, you'll recall this happened January 14th and led to a pretty active evening there as activists and others showed up on that scene, and it became kind of a tense evening there. But what had happened before that, and I did a story on this early April, when they had released the video that she had referred to there. It was from a city-owned camera that caught the incident in question here, which is why they say and accuse this agent of falsely reporting a crime, in which he had said this was a roughly 3-minute struggle as he, again, was pursuing somebody suspected of being in the country illegally. The county attorney there stressing that both men involved here were legally here. So she said it was a case of mistaken identity, but these were people who were here in ways that made them concerned about being targeted by the immigration enforcement, which is what led them to flee. But the camera video here that we got, again, in early April showed this was an incident that occurred in a matter of seconds, not minutes, that there was a struggle in front of this home, that the 2 men, the one had been struggling with this agent on the ground, the other one came to his assistance. They said that there was a shovel involved. The video showed the shovel actually being thrown into the yard before the agent ran up into the yard, so that wasn't involved. And that is the 2 men went inside into the home, that it was roughly 3 or 4 seconds later, according to the video, when you see the arms raised on the agent. And that matches up with a timestamp on ShotSpotter, which recorded a single gunshot that went through the front door of the home, through the leg of the man involved here, and then into a wall, so that this shot was fired after they were already inside the home with the door closed a few seconds later. So that's why the charges here against Christian Castro, 53 years old, and trying to get him, trying to find him and trying to get him into court. So again, saying that this is, since these are state charges from a county attorney, that this is not something that would be subject to a pardon from the White House because they are not federal charges. Also saying no timeline involving charging decisions related to the 2 fatal shootings in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, that were connected to Operation Metro Surge. No timeline there because the investigation takes the time that the investigation needs. So breaking news here today. All right, we got to take a quick break, and when we come back, turn our attention again to the wildfires that are well, not really raging anymore, but still actively being fought and contained in northern Minnesota. So we're going to talk to the mayor of Cross Lake, who's been very active on social media trying to update people on the situation there. That's when we come back. All right, welcome back to All Day Live on a Monday afternoon. A pretty busy day here with some breaking news and certainly some developing news that we continue to follow, and that is 2 major wildfires that were really, really dramatic here over the weekend. The first of them is along the North Shore. So this is between Castle Danger and 2 harbors. This is listed at a fairly decent containment, more than 60% contained the last time I looked. I'm just looking on the Minnesota Incident Command System page right now. 62% is what they have listed, 355 acres there. And the update today is the cause of that one is now listed as a downed power line. But this one is smaller than the other one, but it has led to more property damage with I think a couple dozen properties, mostly outbuildings is what they had said on this one, but still a lot of damage there. So 34 structures, 8 of them primary being homes or cabins, and 26 outbuildings, but again, more than 60% containment. The other one, the Flanders fire. This is east of Breezy Point, southeast of Cross Lake. This one certainly has some very dramatic pictures that we saw. This began on Saturday, continued to expand on Sunday, but now again, the update that we got from the Crow Wing County Sheriff just a little bit ago here live at All Day is that things are looking in much, much better shape today. So that is certainly good news, but the containment is smaller. The area affected is larger. A lot of help pouring in up there as well for those that have been evacuated. Cross Lake Mayor Jackson Purfirst here joining us. You've been updating us here on Fox 9, but also on your Facebook page quite a bit. Certainly nice to get that information out. That 20% containment or so, is that what you understand it still stands at?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the Cross Lake, the sheriff, the Crow Wing County Sheriff said the images that we're seeing show that it's not as dramatic in terms of the flames, but still trying to make sure that it's contained. What's the update?
You just hit the nail on the head. You know, we have our perimeter established. Right now, we're very focused on going within the perimeter. The teams are and mopping up the rest of the hot spots. I'm sorry. They're treating that with water. We have a crew I just talked to from Manitoba here that are doing the same thing as a bunch of other crews are. You had just showed a picture of the fire raging across County Road 11. This is exactly where I'm standing right now, and you can tell behind me what an actual hellscape it truly is, and how hot and how much accelerant the fire actually had to burn all the trees from top to bottom. And without the DNR crew that was treating it by air, this fire would have been 1,000 times worse.
Yeah, and you know, I guess on the bright side is you got some lakes that are readily available, but still there's a limit to how much water you got to keep picking up and dropping and picking up and dropping, and it just is a continual cycle. So in terms of, you know, again, 20% containment doesn't sound, you know, it's a fifth, but then again, you're not seeing the same kind of roaring blaze today. So even though the containment is lower, the situation is better than that number suggests.
Correct. Even though the containment is low, the optimism and the outlook and the perimeter, they're very optimistic. We are doing well.
Yeah. County Road 11, I know I saw it was opening at noon today. What is the purpose of that? I know it's letting people pass through, but also letting property owners come back in?
Correct. Cars have been going by. We're asking that cars do not pull over. Cars keep going by. There's been plenty of video footage out there. We need to keep the roadways open for business, for school, for people traveling to and from Crosby to Cross Lake, X, Y, and Z. But the goal is to try to keep them moving and not impeding on getting a handle of this situation.
Yeah, so homeowners or property owners are allowed to come back in. It sounded like they weren't necessarily allowed to then stay there overnight. Is that the situation?
That's the sheriff's department is handling that. Okay. I don't know 100% of that, so I'm not going to speak to it.
Okay. Tell me more about all the help you've received. And we've certainly heard about a lot of the local businesses that have chipped in. I think I read the A&W in Nisswa that was helpful in terms of feeding people that were working this fire. Tell me about who all has come out to help.
There has been so many Brainerd Lakes area businesses that have stood up and come and help our fire departments, including Lakes Area Heroes, which is a nonprofit organization that helps out everyone in the emergency service world. We're so thankful for everybody. We're thankful for everyone even making homemade cookies and dropping them off at the fire station or bringing pallets of water on a tow truck. The community support has been overwhelming in a good way, and this is what it means to be a part of a community that helps one another.
Yeah. In terms of the evacuations, I think I saw an update that you posted either earlier today or last night saying it was 14 people that had needed some of the shelter. You want to update us on that?
Correct. We're still at that number, is a little more than a dozen. We had some families stay the night at the Cross Lake Community Center, which now has been moved to the Log Church with the Red Cross, as well as some families at the Camp Knutson here in Cross Lake. Just once again, the community support has been phenomenal.
Yeah, Camp Knutson, I'm familiar with that. I've been there, and My mom actually was a camp nurse there when she got right out of college for one summer, so I know that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that area pretty well. How do you describe to people, again, you talked about it being such a dramatic landscape there with so much change. I mean, how widespread are we seeing images like what we are seeing behind you?
You know, this is pretty wide. I'm close to somewhat of the origin of the fire that's just behind me, but this just shows you how quickly this fire escalated. If we look behind me, sorry if I'm going to give your viewers a headache, you'll see County Road 11 is right there, and this is where the road is, and the fire jumped going east. It looks the same way going that way towards the river as it does here. I mean, it's over 1,667 acres that have been burned.
So obviously then, and I've been to a number of these types of wildfires up north over the years, and this is something that you're going to see the effects of this now in your area, your community, for years to come.
Correct.
How does that...
But we are very, very thankful, though, that it was in a rural wooded area, that there were no fatalities, no injuries, no primary home damage. We've had a few outbuildings, and sadly, one old school hand-built cabin was burned. But we are very blessed and thankful that it wasn't as bad as it could be, or it could have been.
Which is remarkable when you consider the images that we saw over the weekend.
Exactly. You know, this is all snowmobile trails, horseback riding trails, ATV trails, and even the drive on County Road 11 from Crosby into Cross Lake is going to look different for years to come.
So where do you go from here? What do the next couple of days look like for you?
Next couple of days, it looks like, you know, they're going to continue to get on top of this fire, making sure that the hot spots are put out, mopping, checking the perimeter, updating when we can. Still putting out updates, getting in touch with those that are displaced, keeping them safe. It's just a big community effort.
Yeah, well, there's a big community up there in that area.
Exactly.
So certainly we'll see a lot of those efforts.
And the Minix team from the state of Minnesota, as soon as the fire started up here, they were on their way from the cities. And we're so thankful for them for getting here in a quick hurry, organizing, setting up, and leading the way. Their leadership has been outstanding.
Yeah. Oh, and one last thing before we let you go, and appreciate the time. At last I saw that the cause of the fire still appeared to be undetermined. Any progress on that?
It is still undetermined. They're investigating once again as we speak right now with some drones.
Okay. Drones, yep, very helpful in that situation. I know a big no-fly zone in that area as well. So, Mayor
Correct.
Jackson Purfirst, thank you again for your time and keeping everybody so updated throughout this event. Okay, there you go. The mayor of Cross Lake, who has been very active on social media, trying to make sure that everybody knows exactly the situation that's going on from his vantage point as a civilian, not members of law enforcement, but as a civilian mayor there, in terms of the impact on his community and the way the community has responded. So we're going to take a quick break. A little bit later, in a few minutes, we're going to talk to another mayor, this time along Highway 61. I believe we have the mayor of Two Harbors lined up to speak to us, too, about the situation there with the trail fire there, the Stewart Trail fire along Highway 61. That's when we come back. All right, welcome back to All Day Live on this Monday afternoon. Again, we just spoke to the mayor of Cross Lake about the Flanders fire there up east of Breezy Point, southeast of Cross Lake. And again, a very, very large fire, but the damage to property fairly small there. The damage to the landscape is fairly big, but in terms of properties lost, very, very minimal. But along the North Shore, it's a different story. This is a fire that began on Friday afternoon, so it's smaller in size, greater in its impact in terms of property. More than 30 buildings destroyed there. Now, the fire is listed at a much larger containment than the Flanders fire, about 6 62%. There's been a big detour around this area between Two Harbors and Castle Danger. But again, progress being made certainly on a containment front. So let's talk to now the mayor of Two Harbors, Lou Connor, joining us. And thanks so much for your time. I know you've had a busy weekend as well.
It has been interesting last few days, but first of all, thank you for giving us the attention and putting us on. This is helpful just to get the news out to different folks, not only in the state but in our area.
Yeah, in terms of the situation, again, looking at the updated information from the Minnesota Incident Command Center, 62% contained, 355 acres. I mean, any updates to that information on what the status is today?
It's still the same. The rain helped quite a little bit. There'll be another report. I just came from an update. The governor happened to be in town for an update with a couple of the senator's representatives. So they did indicate that that'll be further along in terms of containment later today. But right now, officially, it's still 62%.
Yeah, and I see that the update today, the cause listed as a downed power line. Do you know anything additional about that?
I actually don't. The last time that I met with the commanders of this, at that point they were still investigating. So if that came out, then I haven't talked to them directly about it.
Okay. Well, again, tell me about the impact here. As we noted, acreage-wise, smaller than the Flanders fire, but impact-wise on property, much larger. I mean, what's the scope of that impact in terms of how it's directly affected the people who live and work there?
Well, it's certainly it's bad in terms of anyone that's going to lose a home. It's a devastating experience. And from my understanding, there are 8 dwellings that are a part of the overall picture, 24 outbuildings that were part of it. But one of the important things that I do want to focus on them. We're going to have to do support for them as well, but also focusing on the numerous homes that were saved by the firefighters when they came in. There were a tremendous number of homes that you could see where the fire had come up and burnt shingles and burnt portions of the roof, but the firefighters were in the community, and from around the regional firefighters that came in were able to save a large number of homes as well.
Yeah, and you see some of those preventative efforts too, where they set up either sprinkler systems or they're hosing down roofs to make sure that, the way these things spread is not only do they spread in a line, but it's all those embers in the air that then land on other trees or land on buildings. And so keeping those roofs as wet as possible, you think that made a difference?
Yeah, I'm sure it did. And again, the collaborative effort, there are 28 different fire stations that were here from around the region. So just being able to have that coordination and the dedication from those first responders from other cities to come help us with this. We're a small fire department. I mean, we're a volunteer fire department. All resources were on the ground at 3 o'clock Friday afternoon, getting people evacuated along with the Lake County Sheriff's Office. But just the other help that's come in. At one point, I think the number was 77 different firefighters were here. So 28 different stations. That collaborative effort is just so important.
Yeah, and the containment here, 62%, that's good news, which a lot of it is creating the fire breaks, digging ditches or other things, moistening down areas or getting rid of some trees. Have you seen those efforts firsthand?
Yeah, I have, because quite honestly, the fire started just 3 miles outside the city limits, and it did head north to start with. The winds were blowing that way, but yesterday we had a tremendous number of winds and it started blowing back the other direction. So just to be sure that we didn't get everything within the city limits, there were some containment areas that had to be near the city. So that was important, and it didn't come back. We're safe. We had an evacuation plan if we needed it, but fortunately we didn't need it.
Yeah, and then having Lake Superior right there, see a lot of video of them able to, obviously you fight these with water, and in the lakes area, in the boundary waters area, we see them. But the fact that Lake Superior is directly across the street and maybe easier for the helicopters and others to access. I mean, how quickly were they able to constantly put water on it?
It was almost immediate. So again, evacuating people on Friday was important, but I believe by Friday evening, we were already hearing the planes flying over, seeing them flying over, and they fly in tandem, so they're two of them together, one dipping down, getting the water. They had a helicopter. We do have a nice municipal airport, so there's places for them to land in a new airport terminal as well. So we saw them on Friday, but in full force on Saturday as well.
And tell me about any of the businesses there. You know, we mentioned primary residence and outbuildings, but how have businesses there been affected by this?
Fortunately, there are no businesses that I'm aware of at this point. There may be in the area that it was along Highway 61, but in that area, the primary business, and this happened right across the street from Betty's Pies, which is a well-known Two Harbors area restaurant and pie shop, essentially. They were not affected. And I don't think there are many businesses north of where they are. So I think from a business standpoint, we're okay.
And then in terms of the businesses, then on the flip side of this, stepping up to help the residents who are affected or the crews that are responding, what can you tell me about that?
Yeah, well, we went through this a year ago with the Brinson Camp House fire. We were the command center for that, and the residents always come up and pitch in, and the restaurants are there to offer food for the first responders as well as anybody that was impacted by the fire. So that all happened again this year. The most difficult thing is that there's not a lot we can do while the fire is burning, other than those that are displaced, trying to find locations for them. And we had local churches and pastors and people just opening their house up to some of the people. So that's what's important from a community to be able to do. And now, as they try to get back in, or if they can't get back in, finding the resources to help them moving forward after the fire is what's going to be important for the city.
Okay. In terms of the detour that's in place between Castle Danger and Two Harbors, which is, pretty lengthy detour, how long do you anticipate, have you heard how long that might be in place?
I haven't heard specifically, but I did hear that was a part of the conversation that they gave to the governor, that they're hopefully by the end of next week, not by Thursday or Friday of this week, they're hoping that something could be done with that. The biggest problem isn't necessarily a fire being involved; it's the trees that were damaged along the way. Branches can fall, things like that, unexpectedly. So they got to be sure all that's taken care of before they open things back up. Okay, and then lastly, again, you mentioned meeting with the governor who's touring the area up there. Any other indication of what further support the state can provide? Well, he did point blank asked me what we were going to need, and I said we will need something. I'm not sure what it is yet, but they're definitely working on what they can do. And we had Senator Hochschild and Representative Scraba were both in the room as well, all of which are supporting it. Now the next step would be to figure out where the funds are going to come from, how we access it. IRRR is always one resource that we can work on for some of the people that are being displaced. All right, Lou Conner, the mayor of Two Harbors, thanks for taking your time with us today to give us more insight on this. And I know you've been busy. Best of luck on the days ahead. Thanks, Rob. All right, there you go. The mayor of Two Harbors updating us on the Stewart Trail fire. So again, the bottom line here is on both of these fires, there appears to be very, very welcome news today in terms of the containment efforts of both, in terms of, again, when you look at the Flanders fire near Breezy Point and Cross Lake, they say 21% roughly contained, but the situation on the ground is much better than that number may suggest. That is a containment number in terms of the fire break setup, but in terms of the fire activity, far down from what it was over the last couple of days. And then we're seeing good progress too on the Stewart Trail fire near Two Harbors. Obviously areas though where it's going to look different for a while to come here as they continue to clean that up and eventually clean it up further and try to get things replanted. But that does take time. In terms of time, we gotta take a quick break here for a couple of minutes and come back and wrap up this hour of All Day Live. We'll be right back.
right, welcome back to All Day Live. Ryan Rablin joining us from the control room. We haven't seen you yet in this show, but that doesn't mean you haven't been busy, because
or maybe I have not been busy.
No, I can assure everyone that you've been busy making sure that everything is lined up to where we need to go. A couple other things that we wanted to talk about that weren't related to the news of the day. Well, they are news of the day, I guess, but it's sports news. We spent so much the last few weeks talking so much sports every day, and suddenly there's it's done.
The exit happened fast for both Minnesota teams.
Yeah, it did. So we need to say that in the NHL, Game 7 of the series between the
Sabres and the Canadiens.
Yes, thank you. Tonight.
I'm sitting right next to our director, Aya. She's a Sabres super fan, Buffalo native. She's on the edge of her seat right now. She's like, get this show over with so we can get to Game 7 stuff. Rob, I don't know how much of the series you've seen.
I haven't seen any of it, no.
A lot of questions on the goaltenders. Not real sure who's going to start for Buffalo tonight. And then Montreal's goaltender kind of went through it in Game 6. So we expect more goals tonight, I think.
More goals. So let's see. Game 7. And then Wednesday, the Vegas versus Colorado Western Conference Finals will begin. And Thursday, whoever wins tonight versus the Carolina Hurricanes in the NHL. On that note, we weren't able to bring you the news conference with Bill Guerin and John Hines of the Minnesota Wild. But I will note, thanks to our friend Michael Russo of The Athletic, putting on X, Guerin said, we've not achieved our ultimate goal. The expectations are higher than they've been before. That if he can get a #1 center this offseason or in any way make the team better, I won't sit on my hands. That they want to stay aggressive. And that Philippe Gustafsson is having hip surgery this offseason. So
that's interesting.
Didn't know he was having hip issues, but one of the goalies getting hip surgery.
Yeah, Gustafsson only played in that one playoff game, right? That was Game 2 against Colorado.
Game 2.
And then Volstead came back in Game 3.
All right, on the NBA front, the Western Conference Finals begins tonight with the Thunder and the Spurs.
This one stings a little bit, Rob.
It does sting.
Yeah. We wanted the Wolves in it, but it's going to be the Spurs. It's going to be the Thunder. If you can put aside the Wolves stuff and focus, this should be a very good series. Oklahoma City obviously is the defending champion, but the Spurs have had Oklahoma's number this year. I think they've beat them 4 out of 5 times. So San Antonio has played very well against OKC. So this should be a good series if you like basketball.
OKC is who knocked out the Wolves last year.
You got that in. Yep. So the last 2 teams to knock the Timberwolves out will meet for the chance to go to the NBA Finals. And anybody who follows basketball thinks that these 2 teams could be around for a long time. So
yeah, they are set to go. All right, turning our attention to the NFL, the season that never ends here, because there's always news in the National Football League. And this is sources that say that the 2028 draft will be at U.S. Bank Stadium. Not confirmed, but sources are saying this.
Yeah, Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated made a mention that he thinks an official announcement on Minneapolis hosting will come soon. We know that they made a bid for it, a pitch for it. So 2028, U.S. Bank Stadium or thereabouts, the outdoors. We've seen kind of how other cities have handled it. It's all about getting as many people to one area as possible. So
yeah, which is a good spot down there outside the stadium.
Yeah, got some space.
Yeah, they've got decent space. The Vikings did post on social media after the Pittsburgh draft that we went to Pittsburgh to find out what it takes to host. So, they are definitely pushing hard for that.
Yeah, a major event, as we know, in terms of how many people go to these events. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people.
It is crazy what the draft has become over the last, decade or less?
Yeah, when they've started rotating it. The NFL has made it that if you are a fan and you want to be a part of it, you can do it. You can just go out there. You don't need a special ticket. It's not like the Super Bowl, right, where it's going to cost you thousands of dollars to get in. If you want to go, you can go.
All right, and then lastly, the PGA Championship final yesterday. Aaron Rai wins that. Only the second Englishman to win the event in its history, I believe.
Yeah, crazy. I didn't catch any of it, Rob. I really didn't. It was just busy this weekend.
I caught bits and pieces of it. I caught a little bit of it before I went out to play golf yesterday afternoon, and by the time I got home, he'd already won, even though there's still people on the golf course. So
the only thing better than watching golf, playing golf.
Yep. We got to go. Courtney Godfrey takes All Day Live, reigns over on Fox Local. So check out the next hour. So we'll see you tomorrow.